That at the end of the day, there should be a process, once the sites are evaluated, that are currently in the basket for evaluation, which doesn't include Watkiss Way now. That's, as you mentioned, that at some point, the several sites that will be the final list, the challenge will be to the private sector to say, bring your best game forward. And there is a cost there, I understand, as Councillor Wilton mentioned, I think it's $250,000 for each of those proposals. They may have to be paid to do those proposals. But at that point, are you saying that new lands that are not in the basket could come back, and that therefore Watkiss Way would come back? I just want to get clarification on that point.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, so I've been asked to clarify. First of all, you wouldn't be looking at a cost of $250,000. That's the cost for responding to an RFP, in a very detailed design. This would be more of a high-level request for expression of interest, which is commonly done throughout the province. That's how Partnerships BC operates, the whole pile of the province operates. They send out a request for expressions of interest and say, here are the goals we are trying to accomplish. I've kind of gone through what they are, basically. And we do have some sites available, if you want to consider these. What would your best solution be to maximize the accomplishment of these goals at the lowest possible cost? And then you put it in about an 8 to 10 page description. There's several processes after that. One's called competitive negotiation. That one's being used in the province and commonly elsewhere. But it's a very common method of making sure you canvass the private industry broadly. When you send out that request for expressions of interest, it's open to anybody in the private sector to respond. And you give them the opportunity to provide different sites if they think they can do something better than what they could on the sites that you had available. And so it doesn't negate what you've done forward. What you've done forward so far, you want to be able to go out to the private industry and say, look, we do have sites. And we've established that. But then you want to say to them, okay, you're the experts. What's your best possible solution? And if that involves a different site and you can convince us, so be it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Wilton. The reason the East Side set a deadline is so that we wouldn't keep getting sites after. We've got consultants, we've got engineers, we've got the public that have gone through a public process. I'm just not sure when you say no. I mean, that's why we set the date, June 24th, and that was what went out in the media release. Everybody knew about it. I don't know anything about the site. It's interesting that it's between ALR, so it's not in the ALR. But I think if you send this site down, you're opening us up for more sites to come forward. And I think that it's not, I don't think it's, how would you have public consultation on the site? The community members around the site, would Santa chat? Because Mr. Mayor's already said that he's had some calls from the immediate neighbors. And this site, we've had some issues with the site from the immediate neighbors as well. So I don't know if there's some way when we're down at the east side, if Councillor Derman is thinking that there could be a motion at the core area, that if sites come forward after we've done the evaluation, or if we go out for RFPs and there's an expression of interest, I don't know. But the deadline was set, and so I'm not supportive of sending this down right now, because I just don't know where it would fall within the process, because it hasn't had any public oversight like the other sites did. And the public has said they don't want to look at any more sites until they see the actual financials and technology and things. So I think this would be really hard, unless our other colleagues in the region are not going by the June 24th and they're all sending down extra sites. So I have a hard time with sending this one down at this time.
I think I'll just comment on that, if I may. Just from a matter of history, we've just passed C2 on the agenda, where we are going to send publicly owned sewage treatment sites down to the CRD, and the public that lives around those pump stations, they haven't had a chance to be consulted either. So we'd be making the argument that if it's a privately owned site and you need there, we don't think that you can be consulted in time, but if it's a publicly owned site, we do think that you can. I think there's a huge contradiction there. Councillor Plant?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and apologies for not saying this in the first time out. I think the implication a councillor made is that if it's not going to fit into timelines, it won't be used. Just because we send it doesn't mean that Urban's going to say, oh, thank you very much, let's use it, let's put it into play. It's just a possibility. Within a few minutes, I imagine the people who are looking at this, in all honesty, will kind of get a sense, is this going to fit or not? So I don't see the harm of sending it down. And if I appreciate the timelines thing. I'm a dad. I don't like it when my kids make deals that they'll do it next week, they'll do it next week, they'll do it next week. But I would rather err on the side of sending something down that might save us money rather than for us to decide. I think that's for the CRD to decide. That's for the core area, which we sit on. And I also would suggest that the urban systems, they would know pretty quick if this is going to fit. So I don't see the harm. If the harm is that more people are going to do it, well, that's why we're here. We make these decisions. We make them a one-by-one decision, and if it was just based on policy, there would be no reason for the 9 of us to make decisions.
Any further discussion? With that, Councillor Worthman, please.
I just got a clarification. If we don't send it down, can the applicant send it directly so it doesn't come through council?
I think technically, yes, but at the CRD, we agreed to a process that, and it was done through a motion at the sewage committee, at least at the east side, that the councils would get the first crack at it and send it down and be recommended that way. So I would say just based on our agreement, which could change if there was a motion at that committee, currently would be no. Councillor Sanders?
Could I just ask a question for you through the engineering department? Harvey, how close is this to the sewer main?
Through the mayor to Councillor Sanders, if you're asking about how close this might be to the nearest trunk main that
Yes.
the CRD owns, that would be the Marigold pump station by Marigold and in Irma.
Oh, so that's quite a distance.
That would be the distance to the nearest trunk sewer.
Okay, good, thank you.
Councillor Bryce, for final word possibly?
Final word, possibly. I'm just, I think some of the comments that have been made here by Councillor Dermond, may have merit, but it's the speech that should be made down at the CRD, because that's the process place for this thing. We're just sort of processing these things through. And we were advised that anything that was going to come down, we should have down there by the 24th of June. You can be seen as being rigid if you adhere to timelines. We all made a commitment on our timelines because they're attached to dollars, big dollars. And for us to now start at this late date sending other properties down, I can't support it. It's sites that have had no public process. They were on the map when we as a council looked at the maps. We decided not to put them in bubbles or out of bubbles or send them down. At the time, it didn't seem to have any merit. And just now, because a letter comes in, I just can't fly in the face of our established procedure that we've got down at the CRD.
All right, thank you, Councillor. So with that, I'll call the question on the motion. All in favor? So I'm in favor, Councillor Plant is in favor, and Councillor Haynes is in favor. Those opposed? Everyone else is opposed. The motion is defeated. All right, we'll now move on to item C4 on our agenda. Madam Clerk, if you could introduce it, please.
Thank you. One other thing on that last one, because I think the Director of Engineering asked us for a go-forward policy, and I would suggest that we make a decision that from this point forward, no further properties that come through Saanich would need to be adjudicated by this council, that they could go straight to the CRD.
Anyone second the motion? That's typically. Right. Councilor Workland.
If I remember what I asked, I thought that was the question. Could it be sent directly to CRD? And the answer was no. So now, are we saying that?
We're making a new policy.
Oh, it's a new policy.
Second.
Either that or put it in the dead letter file, I mean,
Okay.
you know.
What I say, Councilor, was that there was an agreement at the table by motion on the process, and there's been a suggestion, I've heard this during this discussion, that we start modifying the process. And it could happen. It could happen at the table. It's simply a motion, and the motion can be passed. But to have this motion go forth today, it would essentially carve in stone, because then it would be a subset of this council, the CRD directors, that would then be agreeing to a process that the whole of council had agreed to, right? So that's what's being put forward, is that this would essentially put the roadblock on either side's coming forward. Councillor Plant?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the sentiment of the councillor wanting to be a firm, here's how it works. But a question just to our Director of Engineering and perhaps anybody else on the CRD core area, liquid waste. Is UVic or any parts of UVic been submitted as a potential site at this current time?
Through the Mayor and Councillor Plant, I believe Council, when they had deliberation about the sites put forward, had an area near UVic and around UVic that was put forward.
Okay, so I'm going to speak against it because I think there were other parts of UVic that were not considered, and so to close that off, I would rather not. I think this is a solution looking to fix a problem that I doubt is going to come back, but I also appreciate if that's where we all want to go, so be it. I'm just not wanting to go there.
Any more discussion on this new motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the motion. All in favor? Councillor Bryce? All opposed? Everyone else opposed, including myself. The motion is defeated. All right. If there are no more motions, with that, we'll move to item
Excuse me,
C4.
Mr. Mayor. On a point of order or privilege or stupidity,
It's usually not a point in the meeting where you can come and speak.
I was under the impression that under C, that each item was going to be dealt with separately, and I was waiting for an opportunity to raise a point on C2, whether there hasn't been any public consultation.
So we've gone through our public input period, and I'll close that period. If the council would like with a 2/3 vote to override our procedures bylaw temporarily to allow you to speak, I'll entertain that.
1 minute, that's all I need.
Councillor Plant?
I'd like to move that council amend its practice to allow Mr. Eric Daly to speak for 90 seconds.
Councillor Bryce?
With respect, the motion was even passed, C2. So not only has the time for public input gone, we've passed the motion to send those down. So you're going to have to do a lot of reversing here if you're going to move this amendment.
I agree.
I
Councillor
don't want to reverse anything.
I just want to move the motion, which I think we're going to spend more time talking about than Mr. Daly's comments. It is the fact that he may influence future decisions down at the CRD that I am interested in hearing his comments. I think I'd rather hear his comments than him walk away knowing that he was heard than not, given that he may have come for this very reason. So if we don't want to let him speak, so be it, but I'd rather let him speak.
Councillor Worthing, do you have your hand up?
Is there time for comments at the end of the meeting that would fit in more appropriately?
There actually is a town hall period at the end of the meeting where it's a free-for-all. Would that be suitable?
I got more time than money, thank you.
I withdraw the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, good. And with that, we'll move on to C4. Madam Clerk, could you please introduce the item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This next item is the 2015 legal budget and actuals. The report of the Director of Finance is recommending council receive the report for information.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Bryce, second by Councillor Haynes. Any discussion on this item? Councillor Plant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question perhaps our Director of Finance can answer. And just to clarify for those members of the public who may not be completely aware, we do not question. We no longer have a full-time lawyer on staff, correct?
Through the mayor, that is correct.
Thank you. When we did, we paid approximately how much per year, please? I believe it's in the report. I just can't find it in front of me. That's because I'm looking at budget guidelines. Sorry?
The budget during the years that we had a full-time solicitor, the total budget was around the $200,000 mark.
Thank you. So at this point, it looks to me if we were to average out, we are going to hit that $200,000 mark this year if we are to assume the cost would be the same for the rest of the year as it has been for the first half of the year. But in the last 5 years, oh, pardon me, I guess let me ask another question. How many years has Mr. Nation been on contract as opposed to be on staff? I apologize, but this will come to a clearer reason of why I'm asking these questions.
The information I have was that that change was made in mid-2010.
Thank you. So since 2010, have we come to that $200,000 in legal fees in any given year?
In 2014, we exceeded the $200,000 mark. It's been raising consistently year over year.
Okay. So, thank you. I guess that I would appreciate the fact that this has come in. I think this is something we're going to have to look at in the future. And I appreciate the mayor asking for the report. So, thank you.
Any more discussion on this motion to receive? Councillor Haynes?
Yeah, through the mayor. Director Tinney, so the contracted services under the legal services section, is that a sole contractor, Chris Nation, or is that a variety of contracting services of which Chris Nation is one part?
Through Mr. Mayor, we use a variety of legal counsel. Mr. Nation is just one of many.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? I'll call a question on the motion to receive. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. And thank you to the Director of Finance who brought this report at my request to Council so promptly. I really appreciate that. On to the next item. C5, Madam Clerk.
This item, Mr. Mayor, is the 2016 budget guidelines. The report of the Director of Finance is recommending that Council provide direction to staff regarding the 2016 financial plan.
Councillor Haynes.
Is this a move to receive?
Through the chair, this report is intended to be an opportunity to council to deliberate on the 2016 budget process. So under the recommendation on page 37, there's that council is we're looking for direction to staff regarding the 2016 process. So there are two options provided. Option one is to establish a tax increase cap and to determine what that cap would be, to also decide whether the police board will be asked to comply. And then if option one is selected, the guidelines provided in attachment B would be adopted as the guidelines, which then would be distributed to staff in preparation of the budget for 2016. If council provides direction to staff not to set a cap, then the guidelines would still need to be established, but they would be as per attachment C. So they're slightly different. The attachment B states what the cap is, and that police board are asked to comply. So they're two different sets of guidelines. We're looking for deliberation and direction of staff.
Thank you very much for that clarification.
Councillor Dermott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand if we're going to move for 2016, there are time pressures. The process has really already started. But if we are going to move towards a cap, which at this point, as the Director of Finance points out, would in all likelihood result in a reduction of services, then I would like to see us forthwith, and even before establishing what a cap might be, carry out the kind of survey that the City of Edmonton did and is shown here in attachment D, where they asked residents, what would be your preferred option to our future. And that way, you know, I think we get a little better impression. What are the majority of the public thinking? Are they happy to see services in some areas cut? After that, if they are, we're going to have a real big debate as to what services should be cut. There's no question about that. But if they aren't and say, no, we want to maintain services, then what other things would you consider? Would you consider an increase in user fees, whatever it might be? I think that's valuable information. That's really, truly consulting the public and finding out their impression, since they're the ones who pay the bill. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that in advance of that's decided on this resolution, that we do engage the public opinion in such a survey to see where services may be ones where we get the public in, because we should do that ahead of this, and this will set us up in a better position for when we do the budget consideration.
Well, sorry.
Councillor Plant, would you like to speak to that motion?
Not necessarily, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask a question of process. I had a motion devised of how to go about doing that, and I'm wondering what the best way to proceed is. Is it to amend it, defeat it, and I'll do respect to the mover. Just because I had a specific idea of how to go about that, I wanted to run by council, but my good colleague to the right already put it forward. So what is the process? Amend it, defeat it, or
I think we can ask clerk for options.
well, there's a motion to engage in a study before we do it, so there is a motion on the table, and I'm saying I would like to engage in a specific course of action.
Well, not having heard your motion,
Well, okay, question through you to staff, what would be the best way to go? Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
again, I'll let our clerk speak, but not having heard your motion, I think it may be a little hard to
I totally agree.
to inform that.
That's why I'm asking the question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion that was put forward is that in advance of reviewing these options, that we engage with public input, which will provide a survey to get additional public input on this process. So that's the motion that is currently being considered. If council wishes to entertain further discussion, Councillor Plant has an item that he wishes. You could withdraw the motion and put it back over.
On that motion, it was talking to the content of Councillor Doman's, in that the public would be engaged in reviewing the services. I think you could expand two words, reviewing the services that they might consider to be reduced or not.
Let me try, if I may, to speak in favor of the motion and hope that the spirit of what Councillor Haynes can be interpreted. So the motion that I would have moved, and to be honest, this was the most exciting part of my night, was looking at this report. So yay for the Director of Finance, because this actually has long-term implications. How are we going to deal with our budget? And this is, I mean, yes, Watkisways is superbly important. What I would like to see us do is have a town hall in September, a town hall in October, and a town hall in November in 3 geographically disparate parts of our region, where we put these questions to our residents in the form of a presentation by you for the first 45 minutes explaining the pros and cons of a cap system, and then the second half of that evening going out and hearing from the residents. Now you've heard a little bit of education. We'll make the presentation available in advance. What do you say? And seeing the whites of their eyes as opposed to a telephone survey. I don't say that the telephone survey would be bad, but I also think it gets us out of these chambers talking to the people. And that was another side benefit of doing this, is going and seeing them. What are you interested in? So I would be in favor of Councillor Haynes' motion, because I think this is what he had in mind when he said public consultation. That was meant to be fun. So I apologize. So I am wondering, I want to see people, tell them what it is, so that when we come back, we know that we've talked to our residents about how we're going to do it. I concur that making the decision tonight would be too early. But I do think that just having a phone poll or asking people to come here, like when we did the consultation on sending the letter, would be inadequate, and letter on amalgamation. I think that would be inadequate. I think we get out into those communities, geographically disparate, and we talk to our residents with a non-political presentation to start the evening.
Councillor Dermott, then Berglund, and then Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I certainly don't disagree with Councillor Plant's concept of town halls. I would see that in addition to a broader survey. There are only a certain kind of individual that comes up to town halls. Even of those who come out, some are not all that comfortable with being at the mic. So you do get a kind of active voice at the mic, and it's a valuable voice and it should be heard. But I would see it as perhaps doing both, not one or the other.
Can I comment where that would be?
Well, that's fine. I'm certainly supportive of that.
Thank you. Councilor Worthington.
Thank you very much. Picking up what Councillor Plant suggested, it sounds good, and if we could have the results in our decision by Christmas, it would be really good. Just kidding. But coming back to a public survey, town hall meetings, it sounds good. You can never go wrong listening to the public. Where you do go wrong is the public usually, and it's just where they're all coming from, the results are all over the map. And what we have to do in the end is make those hard decisions. And basically, are we prepared to put a cap on? And if we do, we're going to make some hard decisions. And if we're game to do that, let's survey the public. But if we're not game to make those hard decisions, then I think we're wasting our time and the public's time just talking. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we definitely have a challenge of time here. If we try to do something by the end of the year, we sort of eat up most of our budget cycle. Do we not? Councillor Haynes and then Bryce.
Just very briefly, the item of town hall, yes, the item of the phone survey, but also maybe some input from staff on survey techniques and processes. For example, we could put out a call for letters or emails. We could do a survey online. There are some of those techniques, not to make it too cumbersome, but to touch in different places where some people may, as we saw tonight, be quite delighted to write in a few letters. So let's not leave any stone unturned, but let's keep it slick, slim. Maybe a small staff report.
Please, if the Director of Finance would like to add something.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just to sort of reiterate the continuum of reports that are coming out of my office. And so the next one that is scheduled is the public participation issue. So there's a lot to developing public participation, specifically around a financial plan. It's not something that's necessarily easy for the public to talk about. It's a significant body of work. In our case, that's distilled down into a very small document. So the first process in being able to have effective engagement on the financial plan is to educate the public so that they truly understand what it is that they're looking at and how their decisions impact. So I'm absolutely working on this report. It will come forward in mid-August, and it will kind of lay out for council what public participation, can look like, small and large, where we want to go, and then what the capabilities of your current staffing can accomplish in that time frame, given some of the other significant projects that we're dealing with, like our financial software. So just, there's a whole lot more information coming forward on public participation for you.
Thank you very much. So we'll wait for that guidance then.
Councillor Bryce, and then Dermot again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given the comments made by the Director of Finance, and given that we have an established public participation policy, I would think that the motion, even though I second this here tonight, that it should be deferred pending this information coming forward, because it will probably form some part of a bigger body of work. So I'd move the motion to defer.
Can we do a friendly amendment to put the motion in place now, but then to actually implement the design for public consultation once we've got the report? Or do we visit the whole thing again?
It's a moot point. I don't know if you can amend
Basically,
motions to defer, but yeah. And I think if we defer and it comes back as a package, we bless it and get on with it, because we're going to have to be done by October.
Which is the, through the staff, which is the leanest way here, please?
Through the mayor, it would be, actually the motion would be to postpone. That would be the most efficient.
So withdraw the motion? Is that what you mean?
So there's currently
Postpone.
Yeah, okay, currently a motion to postpone. I don't believe we need a seconder for that. We just vote on that.
Yes, we need a seconder.
We do? Okay, so seconded by Councillor Dermot. Some discussion on that. Councillor Dermot and then Plant.
Thank you. I completely agree with the Director of Finance that if we are going to survey the public, there has to be an education piece, a considerable education piece with that. You know, it's like saying to somebody, do you want to pay more taxes? Well, the automatic answer is no, you know, for all of us. But, you know, given that, certain circumstances, would you pay more taxes? And in some cases, the public may say yes. I think it's really important that we carry through this whole process carefully and thoughtfully. The public values the services we provide hugely. We are in a financial tight place. One of the options is to reduce taxes by reducing services. But we really need to know if that's something that the public is supportive of. And if that didn't get us there in 2016, but got us to the right place in 2017, we're probably still better off to have done it thoroughly and with the public involved. Thank you. I will support the motion to defer.
Councillor Plant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't sure if we could debate deferral. I'm going to speak against deferral. I think setting it in place tonight, that we're going to have 3 public meetings in September, October, November, gives staff direction of where this council wants to go. We want to consult. And in all due respect to this Director of Finance, if we can't explain in 1 hour, when my prospective plan was 1 hour public consultation, a break, and then a 45-minute Q&A input session, assuming 2 hours, we could go 3. If we can't explain in an hour how it works, then we're probably not doing it well. And I mean explaining to the taxpayer what is facing us. So I think that deferring this puts us into late August, and then at that point we would